So a lot that we're doing with 8th grade that is going really well, and we're really proud of that because it's been a long road to have them, you know, part of the building, and I think it's going really well on the academic front. Our literacy initiatives that we're doing this year, really we're building a culture of reading. We're all instructors of reading, and the staff has really jumped on board with that. The picture that you see in the middle bottom is one of the 4 core practices that a bunch of teachers learned this summer, and all the teachers have been trained on. It's called a top-down web, if you want to try it. And so our teachers in all disciplines are using some of the same best practice literacy strategies to really support literacy across the curriculum, and that's going really well. And next year we're going to be able to officially pilot our intervention program. Right now we're doing tier 1 interventions in the classroom, but we don't have any formal pull-out interventions, and we're going to be able to do that starting next year. So we're working on that this year, which is really great. We now have the official process for the Seal of Biliteracy. So I am the Seal of Biliteracy coordinator, and we have 10 students who have signed up to take the test when we get back from February vacation to earn their Seal of Biliteracy, which is fantastic for them. A lot of opportunities for their future. We've been collaborating really well with the COT the past couple of years. All the things the students have done over there, the Trades for Me program. Today we had a fantastic experience with the staff where the COT staff put on sessions and presentations for our staff just to build that awareness and to make sure everybody understands all of the pathways available to our students. The advisory program that they've helped us with, having some of those afternoon COT people, kiddos over at the advisory at the COT has been going really well. And we're even in talks of more exposure for our 8th graders, so a lot of good things happening between the buildings. We did a really successful summer boot camp for math and literacy this past summer, and we're going to see if we can, you know, figure out a way to do that again. We had 27 students participate, and they all really improved their basic literacy and basic numeracy skills over that 4-week program this summer. And then our underclassmen awards, we've always had a version of some kind of award ceremony in the spring. And sometimes they were different. They were like 3 different nights, and only some students were recognized. We really amped it up last year. We had over 300 students honored at that award ceremony between the 8th and the 11th grade, and really some special awards that are given out. It's happening again this year on May 21st. You're all invited, so feel free to join us that night. But that has been a way to kind of celebrate the academic achievements of our students. So academics, some fun things happening. The next one is engagement, and we have done a ton. Like, I think this, honestly, Principal Jake's, or I guess one of our biggest goals is really the idea of engagement and sense of belonging. It's been something she's wanted to really improve in Biddeford since she took over as principal, and so we've done a lot of things. I think you all are pretty familiar with the Pride Days we started last year. We just had a Pride Day on Monday. We did passion classes where every teacher taught a passion. So unrelated to their academic subject, you know, everything from how to make sushi to how to, you know, make your golf putt, right? So all kinds of passions, and students signed up and went through those. The picture in the bottom left is our career fair. We partnered with the COT to have like a college and career fair, while we also had kids go through sessions learning about careers. It was pretty amazing. We had combined within the gym and in classrooms, we had like 120 professionals in our building exposing students to opportunities for their future. So our Pride Days have been really successful. To kind of piggyback on the idea of pride, we started doing Pride postcards this year. So our teachers all have a stack of postcards they can send home to students' parents to celebrate their successes. We want Contact Home not just to be, hey, your kid got in trouble, but look what this amazing thing happened at school today. So those have been being sent home throughout the year, which is great. We started our Partners in Education group this year. We had our first meeting in October. We've had 4 meetings. It's really students, parents, staff members who want to come together and really just talk about what are our opportunities for improvement, what can we do. We made a really great document that really clarifies how 8th grade operates at BHS, because that was a parent ask. So now we have that document for our 7th to 8th transition to share with them. And we also have started putting a survey question in Principal Jake's newsletter, so to get more feedback. a lot of good ideas coming from that group. We have about 24 members in that group. So that's been great. We started a BHS, BPS mentoring program last year. It actually functions as a class in the spring. It's an independent study. I am the teacher, and Hillary Ventura at BPS partners with me. We train the mentors, and then they go down every Monday, Wednesday, Friday during their third block. It's their third block class. They eat lunch and they play at recess with their mentees, which is great. We have about 6 students doing it, and they each have about 3 to 4 mentees in each of their lunches, and they each have 2 lunches that they kind of go to. So some students getting some support, which is awesome. We have something kind of that fell in our lap. York County did its first ever youth summit. It was all kinds of professionals from the health fields, mental health, physical health, things related to food, all kinds of things. And we asked 10 students. We just said, first 10 to email me back, you're going to go. And we got an amazing, diverse group of 9th through 12th graders who went to this youth summit. And we thought it was just going to be like an awareness building thing for them for a day. On the van ride back, they wanted to be a team. They had all these ideas. They wanted to start these ideas. So we've met monthly to sort of implement some things. And one of the pieces that they've implemented is the afternoon snack cart. So we all know our students, a lot of them are living in poverty. A lot of them are food insecure. So after school, they go from here to sports, they go from here to jobs, they go from here to the teen center, they go to a lot of places, and they don't have any food until dinner, and some of them don't even know if they're going to get dinner. So we're able to give them free breakfast and free lunch through our cafeteria, but then when they leave school, they can grab a snack on their way out the door, and that has been really successful. And Shelley Kane is actually helping them write a grant to continue that, to sustain it. So I think that's a wonderful experience for those kiddos to write a grant to kind of keep their initiative that they started going. So, and they have a few more that we're working on now with mental health and with the cafeteria collaboration. So some more good stuff coming. And then our extracurricular offerings and participation. Right now we have 26 clubs at the high school, and over 300 kids are in those clubs. This past fall we had 263 student athletes in fall athletics. Dennis Walton was thrilled. He said it's the most we've had in almost a decade. Enrollment's only going up when it comes to athletics. So I think that's a really good sign that we are engaging our youth in a lot of extracurricular opportunities. So that's your engagement. And then our last category is student support. Some of the things I've already mentioned, you could say, hey, they kind of fall into student support as well. But these ones are really focused on how we can better support our kids. The leadership team did an audit last year at the beginning of the year to kind of see, what do we have for support services, where can we do some more, and it really helped guide us in some of these successes here. We created an actual MTSS, multi-tiered system of support handbook, so that our entire staff would know all of the procedures for tier 1, 2, and 3 interventions for academics, for behavior, and for attendance. It was much needed clarity for our staff so that we actually could help the students because we knew exactly what to do. And if the tier 1 wasn't working, how do I go to tier 2? We have processes, we have referral forms, we have teams who are doing that. So that has been really helpful. We created the restorative room. So it's a room in our building where we really believe that discipline needs restorative practices. So instead of just punishing a kid, we really need the kid to reflect on what did you do that was a bad choice, and how can you do it differently, and then what restorative action needs to happen so we can kind of correct that. So is it an apology? Is it a conversation? Do you need to actually clean something, right? Like what has to be done to kind of restore that relationship? So instead of it being just like ISS or detention or getting kicked out and sitting in the office and just sitting there, it's actually a productive space where the kids are reflecting. They do meet with administration and they kind of decide what restorative action they're going to take to make this better. So it's a much more, I think, 21st century way to kind of deal with students and their behavior. So that's been really successful. This year we have piloted a new Mainer orientation. So as you all know, we have plenty of students who are coming into our country, coming into our state, and we want to welcome them. It was identified as a gap last year, saying we really aren't doing enough. They're just showing up in guidance and then given a schedule, and then they say go to class. They do not know anything about American education system, just kind of the way we operate. So we now have student ambassadors, students who have volunteered to really take on a role during this 2-day orientation. And out of these 40 ambassadors, 30 of them speak multiple languages. So they actually are working with, so these new Mainers are coming in and they're working with a student who speaks their language to get acclimated to the school. There are some inventories and a math placement test, and they get the WIDA screener, and all of these pieces that should be happening within the first couple of days of them being here. It's happening, but most importantly, they're making a connection with students in the building by having an ambassador. So it's been much smoother acclimating those new students into our building. And we actually have those student ambassadors. They help every new student. So the new Mainer orientation, our student ambassadors help that. But anybody new to Biddeford, they work with a student ambassador for the day. So they feel really welcome. So that's a huge success. Our peer mentor program has been elevated. We have 61 juniors and seniors who are helping 8th and 9th graders beyond just the kickoff day where they come to school for the first day, the 8th and 9th graders by themselves. That's always existed. But the new advisors of the mentors have elevated that program. They're doing a lot of meaningful activities and advisory with the 8th and 9th graders. And we've made some partnerships one-on-one with some struggling 8th and 9th graders and some upperclassmen to meet more often and really focus on some skills that they need. And we have our Tiger Tutoring, which used to just be the Writing Center. We piloted that last year, but now it's the Writing Center, the Math Lab, and after this first semester, it's really just Tiger Tutoring because they're tutoring students in all subjects. So peers are helping peers, Block 3, in Tiger Tutoring Center, and there are about 10 Tiger tutors for this year. And they've pushed into classes. They've had kids come to the center. You can make an appointment, you can drop in, but that's been really helpful for academic support. And our bar teams, I think the board probably has heard about bar because our middle school has also been doing it. This is year 2. We did 8th grade last year. We added 9th grade this year. So we have a 9th grade bar team and an 8th grade bar team. And we know that it's successful because last year, out of all of the kiddos that we discussed, I think there were 49 kids we discussed in 8th grade bar. Only 26% of them have come up in 9th grade bar. And that's, I think, a mark of a huge success of intervention. So. Sorry if that was a little long. I tried to make it quick but thorough. Are there any questions that I could answer for you?
That was excellent, Heather. Questions for Ms. Tremblay? Lisa?
That was a lot.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't even know where to begin. So this is all happening in our schools, right? So some of these, yeah. I'll get real close, okay? I'm usually really loud, but I'll try. So all of this is happening, and this is the first time we're hearing it from me. I've heard of a few of these things, but some of them are piloted programs, you're saying?
Yeah, I think we're calling it like a pilot, as in it's the first year we're doing it. We know that we're probably going to have to adapt, right? We're going to have to adapt it as we go.
Okay. A couple of things. For me, when it's a piloted program and it affects any kind of academics, I'd like to see it come to the board first. I don't know if there's a policy on that, or so we can kind of look at it and know what's going on, and then you come back and tell us how it's doing, type of thing. Nothing about you. It's just that this is.
No, I understand.
And there's so much going on that that it's hard to focus for me on any one of these things because there's a lot going on, and you would think that the kids would be highly, highly successful in this district with all of this going on. So much energy and passion and dedication for staff put into all these different programs is phenomenal. But it's kind of like focus is everywhere. That's the way I see it sometimes. So a couple of questions I had on, like the 8th grade, let's see if this works. The 8th grade something here at the top.
8th grade integration or?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, it's a lot. I got to go through all of this. Okay, the integration thing. So is that something that started last year, and is it something that's replacing the promotion type of celebration? Because I know I've had a ton of questions on that. last year, and they're starting again this year. So I don't know if you can answer all these questions, but is that something that is happening for 8th grade without any more focus on promotion because they're already here?
Right, yes, yeah.
So this is kind of in place of it?
Well, right. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily in place of it. I think because of the integration over the last 5 years, and because they are here at the high school and they are part of the high school, there is no need for a promotion. And talking with a lot of the parents, that topic came up at our PI group, our Partners in Education group. Some of the parents who have probably talked to you folks about it came to that meeting and talked to us about it.
Yeah, that's where I heard. I
Yep.
heard about that
Yep.
in the community. I didn't know anything about
Yeah.
that group, and that's great because you can get some input from
Yes.
community members.
Yes, and so, and really what it came down to is a lack of awareness that 7th grade parents just don't know exactly what is happening at the high school. So I think that what it comes down to is they just want something kind of special to mark their child's move from 8th grade to like credit-bearing classes. And so last year we let the students kind of pick what they wanted for kind of a celebration, and they wanted an ice cream party. So we gave them an ice cream party, and we thought it would be really nice, you know, it'd be appropriate to mark their transition to 9th grade by giving them their class t-shirt, because it's a really big tradition here to have pep rallies and each class has a color. So we got them a class t-shirt in their class color, and at the ice cream party we, you know, gave each kid their class t-shirt. And, you know, last year's 8th graders were really happy about that. And so that was our plan this year, is we would do the same thing. We would let them vote on like what kind of celebration. A lot of the kids are like, we want to dance. And so if it's a dance, it's a dance. If it's an ice cream party, somebody said a game night. So I think they wanted to have something to sort of mark that transition. The kids themselves aren't necessarily looking for like a quote unquote promotion. From the feedback from the kids and the feedback from the parents at Pie Night or the Pie meeting was more about like, we just want to feel special. It was kind of what we heard. And as long as like something is kind of marking that transition, we're happy with that. So
Okay, and okay, that's fine. And then the restorative room, is that like, restorative practices have been around forever, like over 20 years.
they have.
Some schools love it, and it's effective, and others, it just falls to the wayside. And I don't know what we're doing here in Biddeford. I don't know if it's something we're doing in all schools, or I know this is more of a focus on the high school.
Sure.
So I think with restorative practices, it really has to be universal. It has to be done everywhere. You know, that type of program, I think I had training in that 25 years ago, and in order for it to be successful, it really has to be a district thing. And I don't know if it is. Do you know?
I am not
I mean,
sure.
Scott's
Yeah,
not
I'm
here.
sorry about that. I don't.
Lindsay's shaking her head yes.
I don't.
and-
I mean, I would like to think that it is, because a lot of us have been to the same trainings and the same
thing,
PD.
the training
and,
piece, and how are they doing it well, little kids are different in high school. In this restorative room, is it actual room that kids go in?
Yes, yep, it's actually a room.
Instead of ISS,
Yep,
which I don't even know if we have here.
yeah.
We have a room they go and they
Yes.
talk about
Yep,
whatever.
so if a student, in our MTSS handbook, if a student has reached, you know, tier 2, right? Tier 1 is I can handle it in my classroom, and I'm doing strategies in my classroom. If they've reached tier 2 on our behavior, right, and behavior, then the teacher calls the restorative room and sends them down. The student goes down. The administration is notified. We have attendance sheet and everything that's always open, and administration is notified that a student has been sent to the restorative room. Our restorative room teacher has different assignments and activities depending on why they're sent down.
So you actually have a teacher that we have
Yes.
as a staff member, that's
Yes.
their job.
That is
that's
their job.
role.
Yep, they've been to a couple of trainings, and that is the role, is to help
And this-
kids reflect.
This room started when? I'm just curious as to how long
This
this
year.
program, this is this year it
This is
started.
this fall,
And
yep.
we've had restorative practices in this district for longer than just this year, though.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
So now we decided it's kind of working, but not really, so we're going to have a room, and we're going to have a staff member, and we're going to do it that way, because one of the issues, I think, was teachers didn't have time to do these restorative conversations
Yes.
with and if it's really successful, you come back and you tell us, because behaviors will be obsolete, right? We'll have, everybody's happy and there's no behaviors. Isn't
If
that,
only that would be the case, but yes.
Well, I don't know, that's what-
Hopefully they'll improve, yes, yes.
I'm probably more old school, okay? And I think the world kind of is heading that way too, but, okay, so that's something that has, for me, I'd like it to it's kind of piloted then this year.
It is.
For you to come back and tell us how
I would love to.
how it's doing, because I
Yes.
think it's great and all that. And then something about reading and something else you had here, because we all know, just by watching the news, that it's like 33% of children in the United States of America are below grade level
Correct.
in reading.
Yes.
That's, to me, unbelievable, right? And this district's no different than any other. Math and reading are a struggle, but yet we have created every possible avenue for kids to be successful. We have every program, we invest a lot of time, energy, and everything for kids to be successful, so we have to figure out they're not because. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's
Yep, and-
like you've created so many things here and so many wonderful things, and we're helping and we're tutoring and we're helping with behaviors, but yet we still have, our academics are very low.
Well, and I think one thing I would love to encourage everyone to remember is that I'm sharing things that these are things that we just have been implementing either last year or this year, and I am really hopeful that things like reading scores and math scores over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see that increase, because especially with one of the reasons we did our literacy initiative and we are doing literacy intervention programming for next year is because we're looking at our NEWA scores, we're analyzing them, we're identifying gaps, we're saying what do we need that we don't have here that would help these students, and we're putting those into practice. But you all know it takes time for
it takes
programs
forever.
to kind of reap those benefits. So the hope is like early signs are good as far as investment by students and investment by staff. So 3 to 5 years from now, can we be celebrating that our reading scores have gone up because of our literacy initiatives that we started in 2024?
Exactly. So
yeah.
in schools, they're very good at just starting something, and then that didn't work, so trying something else, and that didn't work. Like to stay the course on something,
Correct.
so we can see some kind of success occur. And to me, this was a lot of programs. I'm like literally going to print that and keep that and think this is all that's happening, because I really want you or anyone to come back and say like how successful some of these are, because that's a big focus all over the place is the way I see it. That's just me. Like I see it, like kids are offered so many things, right down to snacks after school, and are we doing too much and not getting kids to be more resilient, and successful on their own? That's just I'm throwing that out there because when I saw the snack thing, I'm like, oh God, we're gonna do everything, but I appreciated everything you said. It was a lot, and I read it yesterday, and I read it again today, and then I was reading it while you were talking, and I was like, wow, that's a lot to
Yeah.
juggle. And you take care of all of these different things? Is that what you do? I don't even know.
I mean, my
just-
role as the curriculum and student support coordinator is primarily to help, teachers be better teachers and help students who are really, really struggling in their academics. So do I have my hand in all of those things I shared with you? Yes.
do.
Am I doing it alone? No, right? I think we
Yeah.
have an amazing team of teachers, and our leadership team is incredible, our student support team. I mean, you will not find a more passionate, caring staff anywhere. And so a lot of these initiatives are supported by a variety of different people in our building.
I've heard good things about the partnership in education as well, and I don't know if a lot of parents know about it. I found out about it through somebody, and I didn't know about it because you'd have to read the s'mores letters that go out. And I don't know, it's another thing. We communicate like insanely communication here. We send out letters, principals are responsible to make sure that parents are communicated everything that's going on, but they still don't know what's going on. I don't get it, but that's pretty much it. You have to have it in the Courier or something, I don't even know. But that was something that I thought was useful, so parents can be involved and say what their thoughts are. So that's good. Other than that, I have other stuff, but I'm going to hold it because
Sure.
it's, like you said, it's fresh and new and everything, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you.
And feel free to email me anytime if you have specific questions that you want
sure-
answers to.
you sure? You
Happy
sure?
to respond. I'm sure, I am sure.
I'm kidding. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Marie?
Hi, Marie. Yes, you joined us in our partner in education group, yeah.
It's on, yep.
Ooh.
things like after the fact. Is there, could you explain one of the things that we talked about that I happened to bring up with regards to study skills? And I had shared with the group something I had seen on the Bowdoin campus with regards to study skills that they offer their freshmen because they just didn't seem to have all the tools necessary entering their freshman year. And they were offering a varied course of studies
Yep.
from, reading for research to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I shared that
Yeah.
with both you
Yep.
and with Martha, and you said that you were going to be implementing
Yes.
eighth grade study
We
skills.
are, yes.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit
Sure.
about where that's headed.
Yeah.
And also, and I was delighted to hear that we were doing that at the eighth grade, but I'd also like to see that at an earlier grade level, maybe even sixth and seventh. I think eighth grade might even be a little bit late on board, but necessary. So if you could share a little bit of
Sure.
that,
Yeah.
I'd appreciate it. And I really did enjoy going to the meeting. It had, a staff member and parents and a couple of students. And so it was enjoyable. It was nice to collaborate and share and problem solve. So if you could just talk a little bit about that, I'd appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. Yep, we are. We were kind of realigning our eighth grade electives, and in doing so, we saw the opportunity to do something it's been on our list for a long time, is some sort of executive functioning class. It seemed to fit really well with eighth grade electives, so we're calling it Habits of Success. And because it aligns with the citizenship standards in social studies, we're going to have social studies teachers teach that class. And it will be, we're going to have electives that are quarter-based instead of semester-based. It'll give students 4 electives. And what that does for us, it allows for us to make 2 required. So PE will be required for all kids because it should be, especially 8th graders. And Habits of Success will be required for all 8th graders. So they're still going to get 2 choices that they pick on their own, but they're going to get to go through 4 electives in their 8th grade year. And so that Habits of Success curriculum is going to use executive functioning standards that we created, Aaron O'Connor and I, for the Achievement Center. Those executive functioning standards don't exist in the country. There's lots of reports on them, but we synthesized lots of different sources to make our own 12 executive functioning standards here for BHS. So we're going to use those standards to help write the curriculum for Habits of Success. And it'll be everything from, we're calling it Habits of Success because it's not just executive functioning. It's also just kind of how to be a good human. We're learning a lot with our students coming in, our younger students growing up kind of on social media, a lot of bad habits when it comes to negative social interactions. So just some of those things about how to communicate effectively, kind of how to have a filter. Not that will be a lesson per se, but that kind of idea. So kind of a combination of executive functioning, character building skills. That's what the curriculum will look like for that 9-week curriculum that every 8th grader will receive.
For people listening at home, what would be some examples of the executive functioning skills that you're looking to incorporate if you have that?
So organization is probably one of the biggest ones, right? Like how to be organized. A lot of kids don't have habits of organization, so teaching them, like, here are some different systems to be organized. Even just as simple as like the folder or the binder, or like using a calendar, using a planner. So just some of the basic old school skills are still really good at helping with organization. So that's something. Study skills. We know a lot of kids don't even know what studying is. So, really having them practice a variety of study skills, kind of like the research best practice skills that do really help you study. I know we talked about at the PI group that students are like, no, Mom, I don't have homework, but they could actually be studying for the test they have the next day. They might not have an assigned homework, but studying is homework. And so to kind of, remind students or even teach students that is homework and this is how you can study. So those are just 2 examples.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing that develop and maybe developing that in a couple of other younger grade levels. I think would have a good scope and sequence and continuity and driving those home and giving them plenty of practice with it. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Others?
Real quick.
Chad?
Just want to say thank you. I mean, the breadth of information that you just presented and are keeping track in your head was impressive.
Thanks.
I found it very helpful. To your point, I am in somewhat of a data input overload. There are communications coming from everywhere, but I found this presentation and what you walk through here helpful to put context to a lot of the conversations I'm having with my high school student, where she says things I don't quite understand, so it was nice to kind of put it all together here, and I am very interested to see how this plays out. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Michelle?
I just want to also thank you, Heather, for putting this together. All the links you provided, I did a lot of drilling down, and it was really helpful to understand each of the programs. That wasn't just high level, it was a lot of detail. So thank you for that. I also am like taking in a lot of information,
Yeah,
but.
sorry.
But there's some, no, it's good, and it's something I can go back to and look at. And there were some certain things I was really especially excited about. Like, I was really excited to hear about the peer tutoring. Alyssa had started working at a writing center at UNH, and it really helped her figure out what her next steps in life were. And she found out what she really loved, something she didn't know she loved. And so I think it not only is helping our students who might need a little extra help, but it's also helping those students as peers that are helping out to maybe help them figure out what they're interested in, and maybe they're interested in something they didn't realize they really enjoyed doing. So I'm just excited about all these different programs, and also, like the others, would love to have you come back and report on, you know, some things you're seeing happening because of these.
Sure.
These new things. So thank you for a very detailed memo, which is very helpful.
Of course,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Excellent, nice job, Heather. And I think thematically, one thing I heard is there's a lot of students helping students.
Yeah.
So, which I think is really great. So if it's the helping new Mainers or the mentors at BPS, that's really nice, because I imagine both sides benefit from that type
They
of
do.
mentorship.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
So good job with this. I love your energy, and you're welcome back anytime.
Okay. Thank you all. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
All right, that takes us to item F, approval of last meetings minutes.
So moved?
Second.
That's moved by Marie and seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? And all those in favor? And that's unanimous. I want to thank, I confess I don't know who prepares the minutes. I know you signed them, Jeremy, but I thought they were very well done, and particularly captures your superintendent's report, which is always nice for me to reference on the council side very fully. So with that, to the consent agenda, I'll read through the nominations, appointments, resignations, and transfers, and then I'll look for a motion after that, if I may. So first, under the appointments, if we just want to take that individually, if the committee would like, under the BMS stipends. Want to just take that one on its own, in case there's any discussion?
So moved?
A second.
So moved and seconded on the stipends. Any discussion?
So we're approving what stipends? Like, I don't really know. Oh, the red ones, right? That I see? One. That's all I see is one.
Yeah.
Oh, one. Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's good. All those in favor? All right, that's unanimous. It gives me a chance to say again, I think the people doing this work and coaching are really doing a lot for a little. So we're really appreciative of that. And we heard 263 students, at least even just on the BHS side, participating in after-school athletics, which is great, student athletes. Okay. Continuing under appointments, we have Doris Kelly, full-time bus aide, Alyssa Buckvar, BPS Ed Tech 2, Michael Greenbaum, BMS Ed Teach 2, Kathleen Drummey, food service, resignations, Daisy Garish, Ron Derry, Boda Jardins, Jerry Nason, Gustavo Gomez, Anzar Valentino, and Huijan Methot, and one transfer, Deborah Vadnais.
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded, moved by Marie, seconded by Michelle. Any discussion? Lisa?
Yeah, I just see 2 bus driver retirements, so that's never good, right? We can't, like, POTA has been around for a long time. I don't know Ron very well, but is this at the end of the year?
Well, I think some of them are looking to maybe get out of the snow for a little bit,
Oh,
and then come back and give
okay,
us
so
some time.
that, yeah, and so you have people to replace these people?
We will be juggling.
Yeah.
And we'll be definitely glad when they return
Yeah.
from a few weeks in warm weather, and just like we'll be,
It's semi-retired then?
we have a couple of others that are semi-retired
Yeah.
that when Berto and his wife come back from, I believe they winter in Aruba, we're always glad to have them come back too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything further? All right, all those in favor? And that is unanimous, thank you. And that takes us to item H, Jeremy, and the superintendent's report.
Okay, a lot of things here, but fairly simple. Vacation week, 2 days from it, or 2 calendar days from it. Probably coming at a really good time based off what our weather forecast for the next 10 days is, and just a lot of cold flu out there. Really need to encourage people, good hand hygiene, just, sanitizers everywhere. And when you're sick, please contact the nurse, or if you have that fever, stay home. Just the increase in the area is a lot. Still have people who will call in and say that they don't know about a snow day or something like that. And again, we have a lot of modes of communication. We please ask you to update Infinite Campus, because that is the best way to get it. When we do those, whether that's in the evening or in the morning, my phone will just keep going off after that comment. In the evening or in the morning time, just for people to understand, we place that phone call and we hit the button on that, and the second we hit that button, we are posting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those pieces immediately. Television is right there, and so that all typically happens within probably a 3-minute span of each other, because pretty automated. And so having your information in our correct information in IC is just really important for us. Also, just a reminder, sometimes we get some calls too of people like saying, hey, I don't have a kid in school, and I don't love being woken up at 5 in the morning. A lot of that is because of recycled cell phone numbers that people will get, and then they won't be a student, or someone will change, and it gets, your number gets passed on to somebody else, and it's not changed in our system. That can be fairly difficult for us. We've had a great kind of high school winter season. Hockey still going on. Our girls hockey team won a playoff game, then lost to Chevrolet on Saturday at noon. Our girls play at the Expo, first round game, and Carrie's keeping me updated that we're down 2 at the half to Marshwood, playing down there tonight, so a lot of success there. Certainly as a public, there's a lot coming at us with political changes and or information or guidance coming out of Washington. Just kind of letting people know that that has a fairly important impact on us, because we're just trying to process all of that piece and understanding what that means for policies that we have in place, new procedures, legal pieces, what are we following now, funding, and so we continue to sort through those things pretty much on a daily basis or a weekly basis on certain things to try to figure out what our standing is today. And sometimes it's really that we have a policy already in place to address that situation, but those can be a little bit challenging for us right now, as it just, we have to really stay on top of things. Just a reminder to families, you can see it online, and there's been communication sent out. Vocational applications are open for kids who want to take classes, and they're going through that process. Had a lot of visitations over there already. Before, at the end of January, I don't know if any of you guys got to go over and see it at the middle school, but the middle school students put on Aladdin Junior. It was a really nice play, and they were able to perform that for all of our younger kids at the elementary schools. So they were over there to get over to the POC. In a few weeks, we expect the EPS report to be released and put out to legislature, so that we can see what kind of changes, if any, that they're recommending in that. Certainly, we're going to talk about funding in a little bit. And then also on, just finally, on February 21st, at 6 and 10, Dennis believes that news story Channel 8 has done about the community volunteer initiatives with athletics. It's supposed to be featured on Channel 8 that night between at 6 and at 10 news is what he's hoping for. Questions?
Thank you, Jeremy. Questions for Jeremy? Good. Thank you. We'll look forward to that report, and obviously we've got to get into some serious finance stuff here with the EPS. Very good. Okay, we'll proceed to committee reports. I believe we have a report from policy. Do I have that correct?
Yes, policy met this afternoon. We are reviewing some current policies, going through some old ones that haven't been looked at in a while. So there'll be some changes coming up, some more. We also talked a little bit about some of the changes coming down from Washington and the Title IX changes, so there'll be something on that shortly. And we also discussed maybe a few ways to help the board be able to see changes that we're making in the policy, so that when the board receives a policy, it's not just the updated version, but you'll be able to see all the different changes that have been made to it that might help kind of, so if you have questions up front, you'll be able to see them up front and can call one of us. So those are some things we talked about, and I don't know when our next meeting is, probably 3 months usually, but you'll be seeing some policies show up on the agenda certainly shortly.
Any questions or anything to add from others on the committee? Thank you for your work and diligent work making those updates. It's much appreciated. I believe that is it for committee reports, unless I'm mistaken. Any other committee reports? Okay, very good. We don't have any old business, so taking us to new business, a series of things to update and discuss. One that I'm excited about is this Maine Housing Grant Award. We start there if we can, Chris, if you'd come up on item A under K. I know he's ready back there, so start talking. We need to get it for the broadcast, so let's take a moment to fix it. It's all right. Are there slides to go with this, Mandy? No, okay. Oh, okay. Well, that's all right. It's all of a piece.
Chris, just come right here.
We got the gremlins tonight.
We got the gremlins. It's all right. Gremlins are out there.
In the month of December, Maine Housing released $2 million in funding for a pilot program to prevent student homelessness. It was a very unusual RFP because there was only a 3-week turnaround time. And so when we learned about it from our partners at York County Shelter, we very quickly assembled a consortium of other districts and nonprofits in York County, and we hurried to put together an ambitious application. And when I say ambitious, I mean we asked for all $2 million. We hit submit on that application just before the deadline, and then that night, having received only one application, Maine Housing exercised its right to extend the deadline and did so by about 6 weeks. And from that point forward, every communication that we got from the Department of Ed was promoting that grant. There were several more applicants from Bangor to Lewiston to the Noble School Department, all over the state. Ultimately, we were awarded $275,000, which is nothing to sneeze at, certainly. We did appeal because we felt there were some irregularities in how the grant was scored, but we weren't successful in our appeal. So our obligation now is to get back together with our consortium partners and resubmit a budget and what our goals are for the grant, since we have to scale it back pretty significantly. That meeting's going to take place the week after February vacation, and then we have to sign a contract with Maine Housing after they accept our revised budget and grants. One piece that you're going to notice with this grant is we are required, as a condition of receiving it, to hire a housing navigator, and that housing navigator will be based in our Welcome Center. We think that that's a natural place for that person to be, and we'll be working with our partners at York County Shelter, Biddeford General Assistance, Quality Housing Coalition, and the other organizations in the area that help families who are sort of teetering economically to secure and maintain housing in southern Maine. So we will have more details when we revise our budget after consulting with our consortium partners, and hopefully have some good news to report back, and this spring hire a housing navigator to join our Welcome Center.
Questions for Chris? Lisa?
So Chris, you're saying that we have to hire somebody in order to even qualify for this grant?
Yeah, so a lot of the grant can be used for direct aid, Lisa. So like if someone was in arrears on their rent or had a disconnect notice from CMP or something like that, we could theoretically like pick up the bill on their behalf if it's going to prevent them from becoming
Being
evicted
homeless,
or
yeah.
homeless. But the non-negotiable requirement is that any recipient has to hire a housing navigator. The challenge with that, we wrote a multi-year grant, even though it's not a multi-year program, because you need to be able to sustain it. You're not going to get necessarily the right fit for an employee if they know it's a one-year position.
Right. That was my next question.
Yeah, so it probably makes sense for us to partner and maybe tap the expertise of York County Shelter Programs and Alfred,
Yeah.
who may already have a part-time staff person that could step into that role part-time, or there might be someone from York County Community Action who, you know, CAP is really responsible for homeless services for the county. And so those two were signed on to our consortium, as well as MSAD 57 in Sanford Schools and Acton and Saco and Dayton. So we'll meet with those partners after vacation and repitch, basically. We've got the money, we just have to get Maine Housing to bless a revised and scaled back
Yeah,
application.
and I guess having this navigator person would alleviate what you do, a lot of what you do, is that?
Yeah, some of what I do and some of what the Welcome Center Director
Yeah.
had been doing, yeah. And that position is still vacant. We've offered that position to a candidate. She hasn't accepted yet. We're hopeful that she will, but yes, yep.
Okay.
Good, some more questions, Chris? I think you can get that mic working now and go to the podium, and it looks like I saw Chad and then Marie.
Just real quick, if I remember correctly, this was a consortium made up of multiple towns. And so if this hiree is specific to the Biddeford area, is that going to cause some complexities in how they manage this, effort, and how they deal with Biddeford municipality laws and regulations compared to other towns in the area?
Yeah, I think. Yes, I think that will. The Biddeford School Department is the lead applicant and the fiscal agent, Chad, so the Biddeford School Department will be responsible for the hiring and supervision of this position. But in our original proposal, and, our consortium partners carry the understanding that while this person will be housed in Biddeford, they will have satellite spaces in those districts that we're partnering with. And we chose these districts pretty strategically because we tend to share a lot of our homeless families, and they move back and forth. We have a direct route, kind of Old Orchard, a direct route 111 to Sanford, and a direct route out to Massabesic. So we've sort of triangulated our partners in that way. Yep.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yep.
So Chris, was there a scoring guide in how they went about
Yeah.
divvying up the money?
Yeah,
'Cause it
I'm always on
seems
the-
a little funny.
I'm always on the
Yeah,
end of
little
FOIA
funny.
requests, but we submitted a FOIA request to Maine Housing. And we asked them for all of their rubrics. And we were penalized in one category for having the impact only be 200 students. That was on page 1 of the application, where you have to prove that you have experience. And that number was Biddeford only. The consortium was 736. So they just misread it, and we lost 20 points. So we appealed that. And a second rubric was handwritten, and there were no points assigned. This was a base 110 system, and it was just handwritten with some comments, but there were no numerical values. And so our appeal was, we can't tell what our final score was out of 220. And we were wrongfully penalized because someone failed to give proper attention to the application that said, the Biddeford School Department as fiscal agent has 200 homeless kids and can do this work. The consortium has 735 or 736. That makes us a larger impact area than Portland schools and Lewiston schools combined, who together won $866,000 in awards. Bath School Department has like 100 homeless kids, got more money than we did. And so we just couldn't quite understand that piece. Jeremy did some work kind of behind the scenes with some direct phone calls to folks. And then I wrote the formal appeal. It was handled by internal counsel for Maine Housing, and we got a pretty lengthy, sorry, the money's already been, the story's been in the Press Herald, and the money's already been committed letter, so. Yep.
Interesting. Well, I mean, notwithstanding that, it's positive. It'll be great to be putting this money to work. I know that Quality Housing Coalition of Maine also does contract housing navigators, and the housing navigation work is obviously
Yeah, I think our first call will be to Victoria. Who do you know? Who should we hire? How should we do this?
Good. I think it's a good point, because as you become sort of connected within a community, you get better and better at housing navigation, obviously, as you identify all the opportunities. And I really appreciate you personally, Chris, coming to the Homeless Task Force meetings, and I look forward to further coordinating efforts on the city side, working with the homeless population, which is primarily at Seeds, and then within the schools. Two definitions of homelessness are different. Within the school setting is if you've been uncertain of your lodging one time within the last year. Is that right? So what we sometimes think of as homeless might be, sleeping in the doorway at Senator Collins' office or something is different. But we have both those populations we work with, and then the opportunities are similar. So good. I look forward to that, and nice job to the team and the consortium that put that application together. It was particularly strategic, and I think it's going to do us a lot of good. All right, anything further on that? Okay, Jeremy, I know this topic is tough on the state subsidy. We're doing tons of work. It's not hitting home yet, but let's stay after it. You want to take us through Ed 279 state subsidy? Looks like there might be a presentation.
Yeah, so in your packet, you have 3 documents related to state subsidy. You have a memo that I sent all of you guys into the city council, just kind of outlining the situation. I think that you read the memo, and you kind of will kind of give you the gist that this is a situation that is a little unique when you look at funding. And when I was talking about this in the office, they kind of joke about the number of times over the last 5 or 6 years I've said the word valuation, because this is exactly what we have talked about. There's really no surprise, even though it's a shock, if that makes sense. The second piece, that's a little bit of a memo, is I kind of made a crib sheet for you guys. And I guess my thought on that piece was so that if you had something really simple when you're out in the community, or you're talking with friends, or you're talking and saying, like, why is this happening to us? Like, why is the budget going up, or why is to look at that crib sheet that's there, take a picture of it, put it on your phone, or whatever would help you, because we're going to need voices in the community about those pieces. And I just want to kind of walk through this piece, because it essentially walks through the 279 formula, but just in a little bit of a different way. So when I coded things in green that were on there, and if the colors didn't come out on your printed piece, they were online. when you look at a 279, okay, and you look at how funding is made up, and funding is made up from page 1 based off student counts to the number of staff that you have in your district. And on a 2-year student count, we are plus 57 students. And then if you look under positions, what the state says to you is, based off your student population and based off our predetermined formula, you should have this many positions. And that can include your ELL staff to your Title I staffs in that number. And when you look from where we were last year to where we are this year, every one of our ratios improved. Why? Not because you had less positions or anything, you had more students. And so when you look at things like 1.0 being what the state would say is, I don't know, the perfect score based off the mathematical formula, we have a situation where in some places we have more than what they would think we would know, and some of that happens because of school arrangement. Take health, for example. Health on that one is about nurses, not about like health teachers. And so, you know, we know that we have a nurse at the primary school and one at JFK, and Lindsay's building's a little smaller, and 2 at the high school because it's a large campus. But when you look through those things and you look at all of those ratios, we had a situation where the ratios actually mathematically work in our favor. And then what you're trying to hope that you see as the superintendent when you open this report is on page 1, at the bottom, you have 2 per pupil rates. And the greater that rate is from the year before, the more subsidy you're going to generate on page 2 of this formula. And as you go to page 2 of the formula, this is where we look at 2-year averages in subsidy, I mean in subsidizable pupils, which is your counts. And you can see that over the 2-year average, we're up 62 students. This is where we've talked about disadvantaged rates, where you get a 0.15 factor for disadvantaged students, and we know that we've talked about, been working with some legislatures on a bill to change that weight. But we have a population that increased 4% disadvantaged from 60% to 64%. We had an EL count from the year before that increased 94 students. And so when you get to the bottom of page 2 and you see an operating allocation of $1.4 million more, okay, and you know in the back of the head of all the pieces that were released from the state that the mill rate and the required mill rate is lower, you start saying, okay, this is going to be a pretty good day as you're putting this together. And then you go to your page 3, and this is where you get reimbursed. This is expenditures. And so the state takes what you're expending out, whether that's for gifted and talented, special education, transportation, all of those pieces, and based off their formula with a little bit of an inflation piece from a couple of years ago, you get what you spent back, kind of. What's a real problem about this, and I believe I shared it in the memo, and if not, it's just one of the spreadsheets that I'm working on, is that I get very upset to know that on the special education side of things, if you are pumping a lot of money into that and you're a community that seems to be of the haves, we know that you're getting more subsidy back per student. And that's one of the things that we'll continue to argue about, is that just because you spend more, you maybe shouldn't be rewarded for spending more when there's no reward for being somewhat conservative like we've been as a community. The other thing that's a little bit confusing piece on this, which doesn't necessarily paint the full picture, is that we have the debt service from the middle school of $905,000 coming off the books. And that's just a situation where the money was put into the budget, now that's 20 years is up, that's off. Makes it look a little bit worse than what it really is if you're looking at the up and down spreadsheet of every district in the state. So once you have all of the combined allocations and the debt service comes into it, you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm up $712,000. We're still, in normal times, feeling pretty good. You know that the mill expectation is dropping, which means they're taking your valuation and you're multiplying it by the expected mill rate, which means this is what your community must raise in order to get this money. Then we straight up come to valuation. And the 3-year average has an increase of $511 million. So in comparison to just what the 3-year average was in Saco, they're at about $350 million. So our increase was 16+%, state average at 13. All of that positive green for building up your numbers in the first part just gets wiped away. And so we have a situation where when you look at vocational subsidy, because that comes differently on the next page, which is about what there is a formula there, and there's some more subsidy there because we have different programs. But the all-end result is that our state share of education went from 40% to 37%. It's going in the wrong direction. Whereas in our other communities that we serve, I'm going in the opposite direction because valuation didn't increase. Where Saco's going to be about a 50% receiver, and Dayton's going to be a 59% receiver. It's a big difference. And so what this means is that, and I'd sent you guys an email on this point, is because of the valuation increase, the pre-K through 12 subsidy is about $168,000 more for Biddeford. In Saco, with less valuation increase, they're getting $1.6 million more. And little old Dayton is getting $479,000 more. It's exactly what we predicted and what we've been talking about. The one, I don't want to say this is like, you know, like I've already done what the state average is for next year based off our valuation, and it appears that state average-wise next year in Biddeford will be below the state average valuation increase, which means that you're going to tread water. But unless there's more money put into this and the mill rate continues to be dropped down, you're going to see what you're going to see, because I don't think we're going to get another 100+ students tomorrow or in another year. Seems to be that from our population of ELL kiddos, last year at this time we were having a lot of growth, and I think we really have kind of just like leveled off. I think a lot of that just has to do with plain old housing, like there's not a lot left. But as we continue to have the valuation increase, it impacts your subsidy. And obviously that becomes a very much a city council discussion of valuation and, you know, knowing when TIFs come off the books and what that does to the increase of valuation and playing that game. But this is a challenging picture for us going into a budget when really the things that we're working on is we know that we have a closing of JFK that we'll talk about in another memo here. And where we're trying to work through all of those pieces of what we can do, what we can't do. I have 10% health insurance built into this budget, just because last year it was up. Health insurance numbers have been going up, which is $579,000. let's knock on wood that we get a good rate because our experience rating has come in. There, in this budget, there are positions that actually, because of the closing, would not necessarily be filled again that we'll talk about, but nothing shattering that we didn't already, know about. The budget that you'll see, and I'm hoping that by Friday, I'm feeling confident to hit the print button and hand it to people, the big book, to Lisa, Randy, and John, and we'll email the PDF. You want the PDF version. That's a lot easier to deal with. But there's going to be, salary benefits, health insurance, and, just having a conversation with Paulette. Obviously, we're going through that building, and Paulette's saying to me, I don't know what I do for welding if steel prices go up 25%. Like, those are some things that we have to be planning for, because welding is a class that's full, or what electrical wiring does. So some of those supply things are a little bit up in the air for us. In this budget that you guys will get, one of the things that I've tried to plan for is that you had a local piece of the middle school project. You had two bonds on that. You had the regular state bond, and then you had a local only that was for some things that the community voted on. That local only section was about $230,000. I still have that local only in there because what I'm looking at is that you will have a $360,000 interest only payment on the BPS addition in next year's budget, and then your first payment is $800 and something thousand. And so I'm trying to look at your interest only payment, keeping that in there, looking at your 360 plus money for capital, so that we don't artificially create a hole for ourselves by $500,000 by saving now and then having to make that up in addition to the next year. So there'll be some things in there that we'll have to talk about of where do we get to, but the first piece, just making sure that I'm not creating something that you have to make catch up in the next cycle on without some conversation about those pieces. So I'll take any questions now. Just a little bit different format because I need this sheet for you guys to just be aware of this and to talk to people about it, along with the memo that I sent to the council that people can read, because this is really a simple story. It's the value of your city has continued to go up, and we're heading towards getting less money over time than more money over time based on that fact.
Jeremy, what would be like a shorthand for the subsidy impact, say if we added 100 students?
So if you add 100 students, you have to look at where you have 100 students and how much does it take for staff. As we look at like an elementary level at this situation now, our classrooms are hovering between 17 and 20 kids. You'll have a grade level that's up and down. We have some that are about 20 in the students. So you also have to think about as a community where those 100 kids come into play. So one of the things that I would always caution the development side of things is that if those 100 kids are placed based off housing development, which targets a particular I want to say age level of a family, that can be really difficult. If that's spread throughout the system, that has less impact. If they're all starter homes, 2 bedrooms, and they're all designed to kind of be like for young kids, 100 kids, or say 75% of that put at just an elementary level, that has a little bit more impact to us, just based off space and the ability to, have to add a teacher here or add a teacher there. Spread out, less impact. all 6 through 12, probably even a little bit less impact. So those are the things that you have to be careful about when you look at making sure that growth is, you know, something that is spread across your entire system, not targeted towards one, and then not, and again, over my years, I've always enjoyed the conversation with Mark Lassard about this, of just saying that you also don't want to create a housing stock situation that creates a drop in enrollment in your upper grades because there's not that next home to move into in a community, and having some flow, because then you've overpopulated in one place and then you see the reductions in the others.
Other thoughts or comments? Well, thank you for your good work on this.
Just, let me just also add, I would say that once we come back from February vacation, and I know Randy and John, Lisa's here, I would say probably that second week, that first week in March, or that last week right after would have been when we'll sit down and kind of start having some chats about, you know, where we're at, what we're going to do, what is the impact with the principals and whatnot. And again, it's going to be one of those situations is that I can think of the principals do a really good job putting their budgets together because we've been through it so long. They know, I mean, they're not asking for the world on, I mean, I think Lindsay, did like really we come up with like $1,500 worth of stuff in your budget or something like that, that was like, it's salary benefits, and if it's hard decisions because you just don't get to where you, if there's a target, paper, pencils, paper clips just don't get us there because there's not enough there. You can spend all day and come up with $15,000, $20,000. That's the hard part if you're not taking and looking programmatically, and that's tough, you know. So it should be interesting.
Chad?
So I'll admit I'm new to this, so I'm trying to follow what you're saying. But at the end of the day, you're indicating that property values are increasing. So ultimately, the town is getting more revenue through taxes. Your budgets are being generated kind of independent of that, but you're getting less state money because the town's making more. So I guess the school department can't fix this. The school department can focus on their internal budget. So I guess, is this your communication to Marty and the municipality about, hey, I guess what is your ultimate statement here? That you're gonna ask for more money, or that you're gonna cut existing budgets? I'm trying to figure out what's going on here.
So what I'm basically saying to you is that the state when they lower the mill rate, that's a positive thing.
Yep.
Which means that there's a X amount of money in education. The challenge with the formula is that the formula is based off student counts and how much your property is worth. What tends to be the situation is that as that property value goes up, that can be on several, sometimes it's false because there's two aspects when you think about valuation from a city. There's the current land, and then there's what some might call new value, which would be when a new house is built or you know, piece of woodland put into houses. The challenge that comes in this piece is you've been in your house for a while and the value of your home has increased, but you're really not recognizing any of that because you're not selling today. And so that's the hard part, is that while you've lived in your home and you're really not doing anything, your value has gone up so much that there's a requirement based off that new valuation that the state requires cities to do, to say, hey, Chad, your taxes are going up just because we think your house is worth more, yet you have no desire to move, sell, or whatever. And the new value that comes on from new construction or apartments or whatever just doesn't really equal that other amount of existing homeowners that come into that piece. So while we are just creating a school budget that it tends to be salary increases, health insurance increases, and very little new programming or new supplies or just trying to keep the windows done or the floors fixed, that's where that gap comes from. And so as a community, there has to be conversations. Like, I don't have the full idea of what the tax generation will be on that side, that there's a gap. And the gap here is bigger than the gap that other districts are facing because their values didn't go up as much. And so they created those pieces. So this becomes a community value conversation between this elected board and the city's boards, knowing that they probably have some increased costs as well. And, you know, sometimes what cities do is there's a little bit of a game between valuation and mill rate, which at the end of the day is exactly the same thing. You can have a high mill rate and a low valuation to create X amount of dollars, or high valuation and low mill rate to create the same amount of dollars. This is where we're at, and we'll have to make some decisions along the way about what can and cannot be funded.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, it's new growth within the city is doing nicely, and we obviously realize new tax revenues as a result of that, but this sort of unfortunate and implacable shift towards the expenses of the property taxpayer is really difficult, and it's seems to be hard to stop. I appreciate the efforts that we're all putting forth with the legislature now to get them to think about this differently. Because I think another thing that is easy to forget up there under the dome is that just because we have this valuation growth, maybe there were some coastal homes that sold for high dollars or something, we still have a very high percentage of disadvantaged students, and that seems to be what's missed. So we got to keep emphasizing that every chance we get. And but I do think it's going to take us 2 or 3 more years of work to work out of this, unfortunately, working as a team. I think we will. I think we're on the path to do it, and really aggressively within the, on the city side, trying to do things to prevent that valuation number from going up via TIF structures, and also realizing taxation on new growth, and then emphasizing this change within the legislature, where I think we're advocating will ultimately be successful, but it's not going to help this budget. So thanks for your work, and thanks to the committee that will be digging into this going forward. So, okay, anything further on that item? All right, very good. Okay, we have a motion needed now here, I think, on a first reading of an overnight field trip for the BHS band members.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Marie, seconded by Michelle. Anybody want to give any background or information on this? Looks like it's fairly straightforward. Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Always love to see the BHS band advancing to these regionals, and that's wonderful. Jeremy, would you like to take us through construction update memo at Biddeford Primary?
Just trying to give everybody an update of where we're at. This has not been exactly the weather that you want for construction in the last few weeks compared to what we had last winter. Snow, cold, and all of those pieces are not helpful to timelines. And so just wanted to, make sure that people are aware that, things are moving pretty slow right now, especially because they're on a lot of masonry, and this is it's just not good conditions for masonry. We're currently, as we look at the academic year next year, obviously that's what comes into play, which is also a fairly big budget item as well, because one of the things that we'll be faced with some options as we move forward is to say, what do we exactly do about JFK, and how much does it cost for us to keep open for a half a year versus finding other alternatives or looking around? That's going to be something that's going to come during budget time. We're putting together plans to make sure that all kindergarten students can start at the primary school and what that would take to make that happen next year. And a lot of that's from busing. We know it's not ideal to have 2 starts of a school year for anybody. That's what we're going to try to avoid, but it may be very tough for us with limited space for the pre-K piece. And so just wanted to keep people aware that we're worried about those times. We're looking at what could be some options so that we can present options that also would then mirror and have budgetary impacts one way or the other, because we got to look at, one of the things that's a little bit of a challenge is that if we, if you start at JFK with pre-K and then October, the boiler goes and you've got another 6 weeks, you've got to either fix something that's going to not be used in a few. So those are some pieces that budgetarily we'll lay those out, some options, looking at some ideas of what will happen so that we can kind of make those decisions during the budget process. But just wanted to keep you informed that, snow and cold is not a friend right now.
Questions or thoughts on this one? It's been pretty relentless. I've met with the team at Great Falls, and they are a great team, and they're working hard, obviously, through this, but it is hard to manage. So, okay, well, thanks. I think it's something we want to check in on and just stay up to date with as we get closer, obviously, but it certainly looks like, obviously, that construction project will be continuing into the next school year. All right, that takes us to item E, the calendar memo. Some decisions to be made here, and I think looking for a good discussion back and forth. Would you like to cue this one up as well, Jeremy?
Yeah, so this is just a first look at 2 possible calendars for next year. As you guys know, we have to be in sync with the other communities around us, and there's a lot of work that goes into that pieces, meeting with communities, negotiating a little bit on some of the things that some have in some contracts and some have in the other. Essentially, the calendars are different in basically one way. It's around our winter vacation break of going to school on a Monday and a half day Tuesday versus not having school on Monday and Tuesday and having basically 2 weeks at the winter time without school. Now, there's also just some other pieces that I need you guys to be thinking about here. And one of it has to do with the primary school, thinking about if construction is delayed, thinking about that winter break as a time where we may make shifts in classrooms and if bringing pre-K over. Obviously, an extended time, even by a couple of days, is helpful for us around the holidays. The other piece, in talking with Bill, and we're trying to work with Honeywell to get a little bit better of an estimate, is that if we were closed for that 2 weeks, which you wrap in weekends, it looks like it'd be 16 days. Other than the high school, we probably would put into play that our buildings are closed, and trying to calculate what savings would be had by dropping the heat down to about 58 degrees, 58 to 60 degrees, making sure that electricity is off. That would just be another couple of days of adding on to that piece and knowing that we could wrap in both weekends to that. Just trying to think of all the creative ways we can, knowing that it's going to be a tough budget. What would it amount to? I don't know, $15,000, $20,000 maybe, depending on, again, you can have a cold winter, you can have not so much cold time, so you might not see as much, but just trying to look for every penny while also being kind of aware that we could have delays in construction, which we talked about, and that might give us some time to make those pieces. Plus, trying to figure out what everybody else is going to do around that vacation and trying to stay within the 5 days And that's the hard part right now.
Just to sum up, the big difference is that day and a half right before the holiday break at Christmas versus,
That's
and it would be, goes to the end of the school year in June.
Correct.
In the other scenario.
Correct, and with 5 snow days, we still avoid the Juneteenth holiday, because that's on a Friday, because no one's going to want to come back on the Monday after a Friday off for a holiday, and so it's kind of a lot of things to toss around on those two. These are drafts for you guys to think about, talk about, and we'll come back next meeting and hopefully get a first reading.
Any thoughts or initial concerns or any other ways you'd like to see this kind of parsed and cut up in the committee or anything? All right,
I'm
Marie?
just leaning towards version 2. I'm just going to put it out there. I just think a day and a half, I know it's, having taught, I know what a day and a half is going to be like. And if we can use it to, get the turnaround necessary, I think, that much more important.
Would say something, point out similarly that you end up, to your point, Marie, you have a day and a half at the end also in June of 26, where you have like the 8th and the 9th. So school's out for the summer type of thing. So
It's all right.
You version 2, I can see where the argument could be made. There are fuller weeks. I see your point.
Yeah.
Others in consideration? This will come back and we'll look at it again. Okay. Very good. Okay, that takes us to item F, extension of superintendent contract 2027 through 2028. We need a motion on this one, I think. Do you want to cue this up at all, Jeremy? I can profess to not having done any initial work in that. Put you in an awkward situation.
Correct, it's,
No,
no,
my queuing it up was.
no, it's, we've been working on a 3-year contract, and it adds the 1 year to a 3-year contract.
That's a good explanation. I probably should have asked you that before. So what we're doing is we're giving you a 3-year contract instead of, is that what's happening?
Correct.
We're adding a year.
Adding a year to keep it at 3 years.
Further
Oh,
out.
wow, I gotta think about
Continuing to
that.
extend it, yep.
It's going to take a great deal of consideration. No, I don't know. Is that? We need a motion to give you a 3-year contract is what it is, because you already have up till the 20.
Already have the other 2 years.
So you're asking for another one.
Motion to
I
extend
don't
the
know if I'm
contract
asking,
further.
but I like it here.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to extend the superintendent's contract a further year out through 2028. Any discussion?
Just got a quick question.
Chad?
Sorry, again, I'm new to this. Why? What is, I guess, is there a concern? I'm just trying to figure out, why was this brought up? You say you like it here. My experience, you're doing a great job. Just trying to figure out what's driving this.
So I've always worked under a 3-year contract, and the past practice has always been extend it 1 year, every single year.
So there's precedence.
Correct.
Okay, that's helpful. And you've been here 13 years, and I'm assuming, it's happened 3 times, or?
It's happened 13 times. Well, 12 times, this would be
12,
13.
this would be, yeah.
This would be number 13.
But it's going a little bit more than the 1 year.
Hold on.
Nope,
You've been here 13 years?
this is year 13.
Okay, so you've had, let's say, 4 3-year, or is it
We always extend
6
it.
2 years? That's what I'm trying to get to.
It's always been a 3-year, and then every year, there's been a year added.
Okay,
So that it's always working on a 3.
So we've done this 4 times in the past, is what I'm trying to get to. No,
12 times.
12 times.
hold on. I'm sorry, I'm a little slow today. You have a 3-year contract. You've
Yep.
asked for a 4th year. You're saying you've asked for that 4th year every year?
No. you've
Okay,
asked-
that's where I'm
I've
getting.
asked
Not like pitching for the Red Sox. We, every year, this is it indeed customary, which is on the city side as well, so looking ahead, given the...
Every year, Chad, I've started the school year with a 3-year contract.
So we renegotiate your contract every year? Renegotiate your contract? Why isn't it we negotiate it at the end of that 3 years for another 3 years? That's what I'm trying to figure out here. You know what I mean? Like typically, you have a contract, you sign yeah, I'm agreeing to be here for 3 years, we're agreeing to keep you here for 3 years, and then around the year 2, we convene and say, is this working out? And we extend it or whatnot.
I think that's the arc of the process that we just went through led by Marie and everything.
Okay. Oh, thanks. I just wanted to get my head wrapped around it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
For sure. Okay, any other,
Oh, we got a did we?
There's a motion.
we have a motion and a
now
second?
Discussion.
And, any other further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, and that is unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations, Jeremy. Thanks for your continued good work. Thanks to the evaluation committee and everything that's been done there, and the arc of this process. And great to have everyone here on the team, led by Jeremy. And thanks for the good discussion. Okay, that takes us to item L, public participation. Anybody would like to speak tonight? Okay, we always welcome public comment. Communications from the committee. I just have 2 very quick things. Winterfest was wonderful. Thanks to everybody behind that. A great turnout. Wonderful art space over at the Foundry and the sledding hill, and unfortunate videos of me jazzercising and all kinds of things like that. And then a bit of an ask. So we had a really good housing workshop last night at the council, sort of related to the discussion that we just had about Biddeford's growth. And there is a public comment portal open, which is a fancy way of saying we're looking for your public comment on biddefordmaine.org, what you would like to see more of or less of in housing here in Biddeford. Maybe you'd like to see more, for example, starter homes, that often gets mentioned. What would you like to see, and how can we affect it within the city? And that's it from me. Anything further from the committee or anything I've missed? All right, well, that will adjourn the school committee meeting of February 12th. Thank you, everybody.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, my gosh. Lordy. Okay, we
Second.
got it moved and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.